What could you do to get relief from the IRS if you received a failure to file or late filing penalty from them? Well, if you filed on time, that is by paper or electronically, then you just need to prove to the IRS that you filed on time. But likely that's not the circumstances that present to you to go ahead and have that penalty. Likely you filed late and you need some relief from the penalty. So there's basically three other ways that you could get penalty relief from the IRS. The first one is if you're in a disaster area. Now, this is not very common, but when the president declares a federal disaster area, the IRS does provide some filing relief. Now, how do you get that relief? Well, the IRS knows your zip code that's in an affected area with a federally declared disaster area, and they automatically apply that relief. Now, sometimes they don't do that, right? And so if they don't, you need to contact the IRS. Now, this relief also pertains to your tax preparer too. If they're in a federally declared disaster area, you can go ahead and ask for that relief based upon your preparer being in one of those areas. Again, the IRS doesn't know that. Sometimes you need to let them know. Now, that's not very common. The two other most common ways that you get failure to file penalty relief is using first-time penalty abatement. That means you're in compliance, you've filed all your required tax returns, but the 3 years prior to the late filing penalty year, you have a clean compliance history. That is, you have no penalties in those years. You can check for that and then ask by phone for the IRS to go ahead and abate the penalty that way. Now, the last one is reasonable cause, right? Reasonable cause penalty relief, you'll have to write to the IRS and show them some reason outside of your control that caused you not to be able to file on time. And that's usually due to some sort of incapacitation. You couldn't file your taxes on time, you couldn't do a number of things. That could mean you had some illness or you didn't have all of your information returns, your W-2s and 1099s to be able to file on time, things like that. Two items that you should never use for failure to file reasonable cause penalty relief is I relied on a tax preparer to file for me, i.e. I outsourced it. That never works with the IRS. And then also the other one that does not work is a financial hardship. I didn't have the money to go ahead and file. So there are resources for you to go ahead and file. I'm not saying I agree with those last two reasons why the IRS rejects those, but those are the IRS rules as they pertain correctly right now. So use one of those relief provisions. Again, if you can prove you can file on time, that's one of the one. Second, disaster relief, if that's your circumstance. Third, first-time penalty abatement, and lastly, reasonable cause abatement that you're going to need to do by filing IRS Form 843 and providing your reason. Use those to get failure to file penalty relief.